Friday afternoon's deadly attack at the U.S. Capitol is reigniting security concerns. One Capitol Police officer, William "Billy" Evans, died in the attack. Another was wounded when a man rammed his car into them at a barricade outside of the building. Capitol Police say officers killed the suspect when he lunged at them with a knife. Crews had removed the outer perimeter of security fence at the Capitol just last week. It went up after the deadly January 6th insurrection. CBS News Chief Justice and Homeland Security Correspondent Jeff Pegues reports from Washington.
Flags at the Capitol are at half-staff today in honor of the fallen officer, an 18-year veteran of the Capitol Police Force. Investigators say this incident does not appear to be an act of terrorism, and the suspect was not on the radar of police. But it is raising questions about how secure the Capitol is. Police rushed to the scene Friday afternoon, and National Guard troops still on duty after the January 6th riots formed a phalanx in preparation for a wider attack that never came. It was limited to this: a single blue sedan that ran over two Capitol Police officers before smashing into a deployable barricade. Police say the driver, 25-year-old Noah Green, got out with a knife and then attacked officers on the scene, stabbing one in the face. Green was shot and later died at the hospital. In recent social media posts, Green said that he has been tried with some of the biggest unimaginable tests in his life and was unemployed. He was unknown to investigators before the attack.
We do not have the suspect on file with U.S. Capitol Police, so there's no indication at this time that there's any nexus to any member of Congress.
The officer killed in the attack has been identified as 41-year-old William "Billy" Evans. The father of two joined the Capitol Police in 2003 and was a member of the First Responders Unit. Family friend Jason LaForest.
Billy knew from the time he was in college, he and one of his best friends actually became Capitol Police officers together. So it was a dream of his in college.
Police officers lined the streets of D.C. in tribute to Evans as his procession passed by. His death comes nearly 3 months after the insurrection. One officer, Brian Sicknick, was killed. Another died by suicide in the days after.
This has been an extremely difficult time for U.S. Capitol Police, so I ask that you keep our U.S. Capitol Police family in your thoughts and prayers.
Yeah, this rips the scab off.
Ohio Congressman Tim Ryan chairs the House subcommittee which oversees the Capitol Police. Lawmakers have been arguing over how much security is needed at the Capitol after the riot.
It can't fall into the other political arguments that we're having. This is about the security of the nation's capital. That's the temple of democracy.
President Biden said that he is heartbroken by the attack. The injured officer is recovering in the hospital. He is expected to make a full recovery. And we learned overnight that investigators are keying in on whether Noah Green, that's the suspect, had mental health issues. Lana.
Jeff, thank you. For more on this, I want to bring in CBS News Senior Investigative Correspondent Catherine Herridge. Catherine, we heard just now Jeff talking about a possible mental health issue with the suspect. Are you learning of any other possibilities when it comes to motive for this attack?
Well, Lana, based on my reporting here at CBS News, the intelligence collection can be divided into 3 distinct buckets. The first is based on the suspect's social media activity. Here at CBS News, we were able to capture posts from his Facebook page before they were taken down. And what they portray is a young man who hit a real low point in mid-March. He talked about facing unimaginable challenges in his life. He talked about being unemployed, indicating it was a result of his mental state. He talked about being a follower of Louis Farrakhan, the Nation of Islam, and he encouraged his followers to study the end of days. The second bucket is the bucket that contains his relationships, his friends, and his family. The Washington Post has been able to reach members of his family, and they describe a young man who was on a steady spiral downward since his college days, but that seemed to accelerate in the last few months. And finally, the third bucket of intelligence collection is about this critical period between Thursday night and Friday at 1 p.m. local time when the attack took place. Who was the suspect in contact with? Did he have any kind of support? And what does his phone, other items, his communications tell us about where he was in the Washington, D.C. area, Lana?
And Catherine, what more have you learned about the officer who lost his life and the other officer who is hospitalized?
I've been covering Capitol Hill here in Washington for over a decade, and I just want to emphasize to the viewers at home that this entrance on Capitol Hill is one of the main access points for senior leadership of the Capitol to drive their vehicles onto the campus. And the Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell said through a statement that Billy Evans was someone who was a real bright spot, a welcoming presence as they went onto the Capitol each day. He was often stationed at that security access point. So it's a real blow for those on the force, but also those in the Capitol Hill community, because these officers, you don't know their names, you don't know their backstory, you don't know their family, but they are such a reassuring and welcoming presence. So to lose someone like Officer Evans, who had spent nearly 2 decades on the force, had been part of this first responder unit, this is, to say the least, a tremendous loss. The second officer, we don't have as much reporting on, but based on the information we do have, he has non-life-threatening injuries, Lana.
We are glad to hear about that, but obviously
yes,
a crush for his family and for all the officers there who are dealing with not only this incident, but obviously just 3 months earlier,
Correct.
the deadly January 6th attack on the Capitol, where the life of another Capitol police officer was tragically lost. And we've been hearing about these officers and the service that they gave. Obviously, this is a very different case, but might all of this still lead to changes in security at the Capitol?
Well, I don't want to speculate and get too far here, but what I would say based on the information so far is that they have not confirmed any change in the security posture. That may be a reflection of the fact that everything so far is indicating that the 25-year-old suspect had no accomplices, they were acting alone, and sort of the leading edge of this investigation, based on a law enforcement source, is that they're looking very hard at the suspect's mental health state at the time of the attack. But you're correct, it raises the larger issue of security on Capitol Hill, and it doesn't come in a vacuum. Just a few days ago, here at CBS News, our investigative unit obtained the first installment from the watchdog report into the Capitol Police security on the day of January 6th. And what that saw and what it concluded is that the Capitol Police did not have a comprehensive plan for January 6th. They didn't have the policies, procedures, or tools to create a comprehensive plan. They were not effective sharing critical intelligence that they received on the evening of January 5th, that individuals were coming to the Capitol to, quote, wage war. And they didn't have enough security clearances. This is one of the most basic issues, to get access to classified information. So simply put, this was not a force that had the posture to deal with violence on that day.
Yeah. Catherine, let's wax philosophical for just a moment, because the underpinning of the idea of our representative democracy is the idea that Congress should not be removed entirely from public access. And I know you don't want to speculate about what the security is going to look like, but it was interesting seeing those barriers up, hearing people who wanted to see them come down, and then just having them removed just last week. How do you balance that desire to have the Capitol be a place where school field trips come and families have picnics and people can walk freely with these security concerns?
You know, I've been in Washington for 2 decades, and to this day, I think one of the most special, if not kind of magical elements still in this city has been the public access to the Capitol Hill complex. This is a place where you come in, the police are very lightly armed based on other places here in Washington, and there's a real freedom to move around the hallways. So you'll see the senior leadership, you'll see lobbyists, you'll see journalists, you'll see school trips, you'll see families, you'll see individuals who have a significant concern and they feel they can walk the hallways and they can try and take that concern directly to lawmakers. It's that freedom of movement that really, I think, exemplifies what democracy is about. And just as sort of a side note, once those unscalable fences went up after the January 6th riots, I was down right at that section of Louisiana and Constitution. And if you've been to Washington, D.C., that's just at the base of the hill before you climb up to the Capitol. And it's about 100 yards from the mall itself. and I was with one of our teenagers, and he said to me, Mom, take a picture of that sign on the fence. And someone had put up a Bristol board sign, and it read, "Is this what democracy looks like?" And I thought, wow, it's so profound for a 15-year-old to ask me to reconcile these things. And I think that goes to the heart of the debate we're having here in this city, and I think across the country, about this freedom of access and freedom of speech, and then also these very real security needs, as we've seen in the last 3 months, Lana.
Really wonderfully put, Catherine, and hats off to your teenager for recognizing that dichotomy.
I felt the same way.
Thanks so much.